Wenstrup, welcome to the Bill Cunningham Show. And Congressman, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's Veterans Day, and it's a good day to pay tribute to so many that have done so much for us.
Let's go back in time. I asked others who have called in today to talk about this. You had so many other options in your life, including being a doctor. Why did you decide to go into the military?
Well, I joined in 1998 because I kept seeing our country under attack. It had been going on really, starting with the war on terror, basically, that began in my life, in my opinion, in 1979 when Americans were taken hostage in Tehran, Iran. And then we saw attacks like USS Cole and attacks in Beirut, Lebanon, and attacks on our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. And I just thought, if we need to go somewhere, I'll go. I have great respect for military. No one in my family had been in the military, but I thought, why not me? And I really wanted to know who are these people that serve. And so in 1998, I called 1-800-USA-ARMY.
Really?
And said,
Jeez.
I'd like to join the reserves. And I certainly got my chance after 9/11, and then I was called in 2005, 2006 to serve as chief of surgery for a combat support hospital in Iraq.
Were you in the medicine field by the time you dialed 1-800-USA-ARMY? Were you already a doctor at that point?
Oh, yeah. I had been practicing for about a dozen years, actually.
Jeez.
And all my loans were paid off and everything else, so I wasn't joining for that reason. I just thought, if I'm going to serve, I better do it and do it now. And certainly got the opportunity, and I'm so proud. It's the best. The military is the best club I ever joined, Bill. There's no doubt about it. And my deployment, I would tell you, was the worst thing I ever had to do, but the best thing I ever got to do because of the people that you serve with.
Yeah, give me the highlights and the lowlights of your service in Iraq.
Well, I think the low times are when we would lose soldiers and Marines. Those were the tough days, without a doubt. And I can remember vividly one time, probably the first time that I could tell we were losing one of our soldiers on the table, as much as we were trying to save him. And I looked at the clock, and I thought, I wonder what his family's doing right now. They're probably having lunch and have no idea what just happened to him. And then at one time, the anesthesiologist said he was at my table at breakfast this morning. And you remember those things, but the highlight of what we did is, we knew we were liberating people from a terrible tyrant in Saddam Hussein, and the gratitude that you felt. And we also did things that most people don't get to hear about. We saved the lives of little children with illnesses, and we had so much medical knowledge there that we were able to do great things. But we were also in a very unique mission because we were at Abu Ghraib prison. So that meant that we were in charge of the health care of all those that were being detained. So all the prisoners we were responsible for. I actually operated on Chemical Ali, someone who killed tens of thousands of Kurds. And, but our job was to do the right thing. We have a Hippocratic oath, and we let justice take its place. As actually the Iraqis ended up hanging him 3 years later after they tried him.
So, Brad Wenstrup, talk about, I think a lot of Americans don't know this, that we're about the only country in the world that has such a rule that we provide exactly the same medical care to an injured American soldier as we do to a captured terrorist. Is that true, and why do we do that?
Well, we do that, I think, because it's the right thing to do, and we have always done that. We have always been that way. And, our job was to win over the hearts and minds of people that didn't know us. And I truly believe in our mission there that we had people that wanted to be captured, because if they came into Abu Ghraib prison and they were getting fed 3 times a day and they were getting health care if they needed it. And really most patients were pretty obliging, but you certainly had several that said, thanks so much for taking care of me, but if I have the chance to kill you, I will.
Great.
So it's an extremely different environment, but I have no doubt that we won over the hearts and minds of people. There was one so badly wounded, we were just going to try and return him to his family because we didn't think he was going to live very long because of his wounds. And we took care of him for 8 months. And when we tried to return him to his family, he looked at us and he said, "You all are my family now." I mean, so, you have things like that, and you realize that you're by doing the right thing, you are changing the hearts and minds of people.
Having sacrificed so much, excuse me, about 7,000 died in Iraq. Tens of thousands are wounded. 22 service personnel kill themselves every day because it is an incredible time to serve. It's the best and worst of times in many ways as far as the lack of success that we have. When you look back on Iraq, and you didn't serve in Afghanistan, but served in Iraq, but still, once again, terrorists have taken over. It looks as if it was worthless. It didn't accomplish the mission. I can recall that President George Bush 43, I had him on the show once, and I asked him, how do we judge the success or failure of this mission? And he said, well, if 15 or 20 years from now, if the flag of freedom has been planted in Baghdad, in Iraq, and we show the Middle East, all over the Middle East, that American principles of independence and freedom and personal rights can proliferate and flourish all over the Middle East, then we would have known the mission has been a success. So by that standard, how do you judge the success or failure of the mission politically and then militarily?
Well, I think in Iraq we have made gains, and I think that what people saw take place in Iraq, although I think we made mistakes, my feeling was, we had the no-fly zone going there for many years, which kept the Kurds safe up in the north, and if we had kept a presence, forward deployment of an air base in the Kurdish region, they would have loved it, and it would have brought more stability to the area and not led to the rise of ISIS that we saw. So that, to me, was a mistake, and I think we've made the same mistake in Afghanistan. Why did we leave Bagram? We could have left a very small footprint and made a difference. But if you look at the Middle East and you see the peace treaties that have came out under the Trump administration with Israel, I think a lot of that had to do with them seeing what could be done if we can operate in a manner of peace. So sometimes don't see that firsthand, but I think that those things do have an effect. And maybe not the same as we have in Korea. People say that these were the longest wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. Korean War is really still going on, by the way, and we still have troops there.
60 years.
But that presence has led to peace. We talk about, peace through strength, and this is an example of it. And so the more we can do that in areas where it affects Americans and American lives and counterterrorism, the better off we're all going to be.
Now, about an hour ago, I had on Stu Schiller, who's the father of Lieutenant Colonel Stu Schiller, and he mentioned your name as someone trying to bring peace and closure to the Schiller family. The 6 charges under the UCMJ. They're seeking an honorable discharge or a general discharge with honorable conditions. What are you doing to help Stu Schiller, who's a Cincinnati guy, went to Anderson High School, like you, went to University of Cincinnati, and what are you doing to try to help him get out?
Well, first, I think that anybody saw what happened in Afghanistan, and in my opinion, it was unnecessary to lose the lives of the Americans that we did, the 13, and by the way, there were even more wounded. I was actually at Walter Reed operating, as many of them were coming back as a reservist there. So I'm trying to help Stu from the standpoint that this is distressing to a lot of soldiers. He knew what he was doing, and he knew that he was breaking the rules, and he accepted that. He takes accountability for what he's doing. I've tried to be consoling with the family and tried to be a conduit to the powers that be so that he will be treated fairly and cared for, actually, and that he gets, justice being served, but also hopefully he can get his discharge. He has put in for his resignation, and I hope that there's a speedy answer to that.
Well, when you watch General Mark Milley or Lloyd Austin was a 4-star, retired about 5-6 years ago, went to work for a defense contractor, and he came back as Secretary of Defense. Are they taking responsibilities? Is Joe Biden taking responsibilities for the abject failure in Afghanistan, which continues to leave behind about 400 Americans? Are they taking responsibility as Stu Schiller did?
Well, I would like, and as members of Congress, we want to hold our military accountable and answer the questions that need to be answered. And, we have oversight. So in my role as a member of Congress, we want to get to the the bottom of accountability and who made decisions and why they made decisions. You know, I can very clearly say that I never would have expected that we would leave Americans and our equipment behind in a bipartisan fashion. We were fighting to make sure that the Afghanis that helped us, the special immigrant visas, were getting issued. We even passed laws to expedite the process. And President Biden signed them, and we worked with the administration, but unfortunately, many of them had been left behind. And so I think that militarily, we certainly did not do things correctly. We should have gotten our people out. We should have gotten those that have helped us out as promised. We called our congressional task force Honor Your Promises Task Force, and it was bipartisan. We should have accomplished all that before we left. And so the military, moves that were made, there needs to be accountability as to who made the decisions and why. And, you know, we always do an after-action review. We try not to make same mistakes again. We do an after-action review and hold people accountable, and that needs to be done very thoroughly, and Congress has a role to play in that.
Speaking about accountability, if when you were serving in Iraq, if you had a sidearm and you went to some social function off the base, and for some reason you left your firearm in that bar, restaurant, or cafe, and then came back, you would have been discharged summarily. On the other hand, if you're a general or the president and you leave billions of dollars worth of equipment, armored vehicles, billions of rounds of ammunition, millions of weapons, including helicopter gunships, you leave all that behind, then you get promoted and get to work for Raytheon. Last question is this to you, and that is about where we go from here. There's a toxic culture alive in the military today that directly or indirectly causes the suicide of 22 veterans every day in America. It's a disgusting number. You're a doctor, representative, you're in the military. What is it about today's military that causes that result?
Well, you know, I don't know if it's all to blame within the military. I think that there's some accountability that needs to be there. As a society, we should not be making our veterans into victims. A really good book on this topic, and by someone who really put himself in the middle, is called Tribe by Sebastian Junger. And he goes, you know, you serve in the military and you are part of something every day. You are needed absolutely every day. You're part of a team. You're respected. And too often when you get out, you may come back to an America where there might not be a job for you, or you just wander. And I think that, for one thing, what we should be doing as a military is when we recruit, and we've been pushing for this in Congress, actually, that when you recruit and you talk to somebody about what they want to do in the military, and you're sitting there with their parents, especially for young people, what do you want to do in the military, and what do you do when you get out? And how can we have the military be your path to your next life after your military service? And I think that would make a big difference, so that the day you take off that uniform, you know right where you're going and what you're going to do, whether it's using the GI Bill or going into driving a truck. We want to make that pathway there and let your military experience be part of the background that allows you to accomplish that goal.
So the number to call is 800 USA Army, is that it?
Well, that's what I did. I believe that number still exists. I did it in 1998.
And you were like 40 years old, in full fury with your podiatry medicine. You were actually working, and you said you had a calling, and sometimes it's to the priesthood, sometimes it's to the military. And I tell young folks between 20 and 30 years old, if you're kind of lost, don't know what to do, got out of high school, got out of college, your life's not working as you would like it to, join the military. And go on this other venture and see what happens. 1-800 to USA Army. And once again, Brad Wenstrup, thank you for your service to this great nation. And I'm glad we have people like you, sons and daughters, willing to step forward. All gave some and some gave all. And you're one of the ones that gave some, and it's greatly appreciated by those that have you as our congressman, and greatly appreciated by those in the military. And I wish we had a commander-in-chief and an Army Corps, a General Corps, as good as the enlisted men and women that serve. But Brad Wenstrup, thanks again for coming on the Bill Cunningham show. Good luck and Godspeed. Thank you.
God bless you, Bill. Thanks.
Brad Wenstrup. All right, let's continue.